Oh, it is a feel-good Friday right here on Morning Cafe. Karibu sana. Today is Friday, 13th September 2024. That's a very significant date for the superstitious ones. Friday the 13th, Jipange. For President William Ruto, today, exactly 2 years ago, is when he took oath of office to become president of this great republic, and that is the main discussion this morning. 2 years of William Ruto.
Most definitely. Umesahau kuambia watu majina.
Oh, wanajua by now. Mimi naitwa Freddy.
Mimi naitwa Stanley Nyerungita. Most definitely. Karibu sana to Feel Good Friday. Leo hata siwapeleki na barabara. Nataka leo muende JKIA because you're going international this particular morning. So after taking a look at, tumeanza na the Star. For a particular reason. Yes.
Because smart people read the Star.
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
So they go with 69 Central MPs ditch Gachagua for Professor Kindiki. A rather long headline, but yeah.
Yes.
We also have in studio Bwana Henry Makori, an editor from the Star. We'll be looking at this and other stories that the Star's been focusing on, including 2 years of William Ruto.
Oh yes. And the reason I was telling you, mbona ninakupeleka international. Now, Angela Tumo, she is the Miss Tourism Africa. She will be representing Kenya. This will be happening in Nigeria sometime this particular year. I'll be telling you all about this, but then we'll be having...
Be in studio?
She will be in studio.
Oh, yeah. Something to look forward.
Ndio maana naambia I'm taking you international this particular morning. Tukitoka Nigeria, ladies and gentlemen, I'm taking you all the way. DJ Granite on the ones and twos, obviously helping us with the turntable list. Alafu, tutakuwa tunaenda Congo pale. Tunasikiza karumba vizuri. You know, we realize that tunakuekenga muziki yenye uwezi dance na magoti yako.
Magoti na uma ya
bas. So, Zara Zenab, Mwasi ya Tembe, na Dr. Nico, King of Rumba. This particular morning, ladies and gentlemen, we're giving you a Rumba edition. Usiende mbali bana.
Of course, before that, we'll be having this youth perspective on state of the nation. Josephat Kamanya, Jerika Higa, Hans Rop, and Kijana Steve Nderi will be in studio as we take a look at President William Ruto's scorecard 2 years on. A quick look at the dailies. Of course, we started off with the Star.
The Star, but Daily Nation.
But Daily Nation, same story. Vice President, Deputy President Gachagua isolated, and a picture of him alone, walking alone there.
Towards being a Friday imetosha. They have quite a number of headlines, by the way. But I love the fact that they have other headlines that other dailies don't have, but yes.
Ruto at 2, hits and misses is there on the Daily Nation as well. We had talked about the Star and the coverage of that, so let's move on to Taifa Leo.
Yes. Now on this daily you'll realize that kuna wengine picha zao zimeonekana mara mbili, majina yamerudiwa tena mara mbili. I'm talking about President William Ruto mara mbili pale, the face of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. He is a splash for gazeti ya Taifa Leo. Asema Gachagua apewa talaka.
Alafu anasema kimeumana. Kimeumana.
Hey.
Harusi ya UDA ODM kwingine sasa yanukia. Maswala ya markiti Sakaja Gachagua watofautiana. Ruto afufua kazi mtaani ya Uhuru.
Sababu za Raila kukwamilia ODM.
Raila mara mbili kwa ukurasa wa mbele, Gachagua mara mbili kwa ukurasa wa mbele, na Rais William Ruto mara mbili kwa ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
Na mashida za Arsenal. Now other dailies are talking about hits and misses. People Daily decided, you know what? Sisi leo naenda na hits.
Ruto reign of agony against a black background. What does that mean? Yeah? I tell you. And hapa juu anasema state has moved to gag people daily. No? Yes. They are biting hard. Yeah?
Oh, yes.
Going all out. They have the picture of the president when he was sworn in 2 years ago on 13th of September 2022 at the Kasarani Stadium. They're holding the sword. Alisema hisi ya kukata mboga. Mulidhani ya kukata mboga. But the headline, Ruto reign of agony.
Uncovered Adani and his Kenya deals, and they're asking what is Asia's second richest man really up to. We'll be getting to take a look at, they have some numbers here, so tutakuwa tunarudi kuangalia how important it is, but then
Kenya Kwanza's broken promises and fighting crisis. 2 years of Ruto is there on the top of this paper.
Yes. I love how neat it is today.
Yeah, it looks very neat. Ni kama gazeti ile ya Uganda. It looks very neat.
Daily Monitor.
Business Daily, banks face ban for selling non-existent insurance. New bank assurance licenses at risk, and unlimited cash leaves customers exposed. Alafu kuna mabilionea watatu pale chini.
Yes.
3 billionaires taking on big corporates. Kwa billionaire hapa Kenya.
Nakumbia.
Masuala mzuri.
The paper we're talking about in Uganda, the cleanest paper on the front page, they have a special report today on sickle cell disease. They say the rising burden of sickle cell, and they have some numbers here that always, for the special reports, they always have to boggle them. New figures from the government show a growing burden of sickle cell disease, with the lab identifying 34,729 positive cases, which brackets represent 7% out of 500,000 tests done in children the last 10 years.
That's a Daily Monitor. In Uganda, still in Uganda, the new vision why EC rejected Besige's party. Opposition leader Kiza Besige, of course there was a fallout in FDC, his old party, the Forum for Democratic Change. So he went ahead and tried to open and start a new party.
And even tried to rename it.
Registrar amesema na copy watu sana. So they rejected that. That's the big news there on the front page of the New Vision. Across the border in Uganda, gazeti la Mwananchi wasema uvamizi, mauaji kituo cha polisi. Wananchi wavamia na kushambulia kituo cha polisi wakitaka kuwaua watuhumiwa. Wawili wauawa, yumo mwanafunzi na maduka yafungwa. Familia yadai alipigwa risasi akiwa chumbani. IGP asema nchi iko salama. Walienda wakavamia polisi, walikuwa wanataka hao watu mmefungia huko ndani walete hapa. Some proper mob justice. Beach Boy nasiri usafirishaji unga baharini.
Wow. I think both of these conversations also happen in Kenya, so siati tuko mbali sana na wao masuala ya watu
wanavamia polisi kule Moranga pia.
Still in Tanzania, the front page of the Citizen, how Polish man created bogus paradise in Zanzibar. So apparently this gentleman called Wojciech Zabinski. Wojciech, okay. Wojciech Zabinski is wanted in his home country in connection with allegations that he swindled dozens of his compatriots out of substantial sums of money after promising them non-existent holidays in Zanzibar. Kaita watu akawambia, you know what guys, hapa hivi Zanzibar kuna holiday vizuri, holiday packages, kumbe there's nothing.
All right, those are the dailies. We'll be looking at the Star with Henry Makori, the Star editor, but let's come back home and take a look at the weather situation today.
Yes.
And umeniambia leo kuna mtandao mpya.
Yes, so today I want us to take a look at the weather courtesy of the Kenya Met Department. So on their website, okay, yes. So the website, they have this whole map and it has different locations. So if we tap on the first one here, for example, it shows you Lodwar, for example, showing you in the morning in Lodwar it's going to be some sunny intervals. This is also going to be the same in the afternoon. Highs of 36 and lows of 26 as well. Let's go to the south side of the country. Tuangalie the lakeside region Kwanza. This is in Kisii. Sunny intervals. Afternoon, if you're in Kisii, do expect some light showers. Inakuanga kawaida by the way, if you're in Kisii.
Lazima kunyesha afternoon.
By 5 p.m. hapo hadi wanakoga wamejua. Unatoka job, imeanza kunyesha.
Okay.
Highs of 28 as well. Tuangalie to the south side, maybe into the eastern region in Makindu, some sunny intervals from the morning all the way to the afternoon. Highs of 30 and lows of 17. And tuangalie some the coast side in Lamu, highs of 30 as well as lows of 25 all the way. Some sunny intervals is expected. Tuone kama, you know, the fact that this particular gives you in Kitui sunny intervals, highs of 29, lows of 17, gives you a whole showcasing different locations in the country. You can check out.
It looks like that because now I think I can try huku nione huko ni wapi huko juu, kumbe ni Mandera huko juu. Highs of 37 degrees in Mandera, lows of 25. That's extreme weather.
Oh yes.
All right. Before we take a look at the Star, do we have today in history or today's diary?
Today's diary. First off, Acting Inspector General Gilbert Masengeli is expected to know his fate today, as he is anticipated to appear before the High Court for sentencing after being found guilty of contempt of court for snubbing legal orders for about 7 times. That is going to be something that we're going to be looking forward to. Earlier this week, High Court Judge Lawrence Mugambi had given this particular order saying Friday is going to be the big day, so we wait to see how that will be playing along. Cabinet Secretary of Environment and Climate Change, Eden Duale, will be presiding over the 47th Kenya Forestry College graduation ceremony in Londiani, that is in Kericho County. This particular event starts at around 9 a.m. So wait to see also what the Cabinet Secretary will be saying on matters political parties, something that the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties will be launching today, the political parties accounts, procurement policy and procedure manual by this particular office. So something again interesting for the dynamics of the political parties in the country. Wait to see how this particular launch will be and what will be said. That in a nutshell, what to expect in our subsequent bulletins. Right now though, today in history.
Today in history, 13th September 2015. On this day, at least 54 people were killed in Nigeria when Boko Haram insurgents attacked Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State, with bombings and gunfire.
All right, we'll be taking a look at the Star this morning with my editor from the Star, Henry Makori. So tupatie kiu ya newspaper review.
Kwa hiyo newspaper. I like the fact that first of all they go the 69 as the number of MPs, while other dailies go with 48. First of all, I'm curious about that.
Yes, even Makori. Yes, Stanley is concerned about the number here because most papers have gone with 48. Here it says 69 Central MPs ditch Gachagua for Professor Kindiki. Kindly clarify on that.
Yes, the number is 69 because yesterday the Nyahuru declaration had 48 members of parliament. But earlier, there was a group of 21 members of parliament, senators, MPs, from Mount Kenya East, who had already backed Professor Kindiki. Yes.
So,
the number comes from 48 plus 21.
48 plus 29. All right. So, yes, the big story here is about the wars that the deputy president is facing.
Yeah.
And one may wonder, how significant is this? Because it's also on the front page of another daily.
Yeah.
Deputy president is a big political figure in the central region. The fact that now they're talking about his isolation, how big of a story is this?
This is a huge story because 69 members of parliament falling out with a deputy president who has been making efforts to build his backyard as a political base. That is a huge story, and obviously people will be wanting to what are the implications of this realignment, particularly ahead of the 2027 general election.
Okay, because it would appear going forward that there's a lot to be said about his position in government, whether his seat as a deputy president is under threat. What do you think, in as far as analysis is concerned, of his position in government going forward with this kind of declarations?
Yeah, there is intense pressure. The deputy president is under intense pressure from right behind his own backyard, and nationally, of course, there are a lot of questions being asked about what really is happening, what's going on, what is his political position, what is his political future, given this kind of pressures from his local people and nationally. But again, politics is a game, of course, of numbers, but also it's a long-term game.
And you've covered enough politics.
Yes.
You've seen previous administrations and how the number two is always treated.
Yes, yes.
Even the current president had his own wars with his boss back then when he was deputy. We've seen how vice presidents in previous administrations have also been treated. Is this any different this time round?
Well, it's difficult to tell. Sometimes it's not even one's not even sure whether this purported fight against the DP is genuine. It could be an inside job, a game in which you keep the region completely entertained by the politics of what appears to be strife, when actually there isn't strife. And when the whistle is blown for the next election, all these politicians who are purporting to break away from the DP, they will fall in line.
And they will all come back.
Yeah.
So, but today, the main story today is about the 2 years of William Ruto.
Yes, yes.
And I can see every other paper has that on the front page. But the Star for one reason or another, did not mention that on the front page. Why?
Yes, we broke the story on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That was the big story ahead of everyone else. And we started this big conversation. This is the anniversary week for the Kenya Kwanza administration. And so we wanted Kenyans to begin to think, ask yourself, where were you on September 13, 2 years ago? And what did you feel? What did you think? Where did you think the nation was headed? And on the basis of your own assessments, what do you think has been achieved and what has not been achieved? Is the glass half full or half empty? That's the concept.
And I saw that headline on Tuesday this week, and it talks about Ruto's achievements. Many other dailies you've seen have gone with hits and misses. There's, I think the People Daily talks about the 2 years of agony.
Yes.
And they try to strike a balance. But on Tuesday this week, Star went with William Ruto's achievements. And there was a list of those achievements on the front page.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why did you decide to go that direction? Because most others are trying to strike a balance. Yes, he may have tried this way, but here he failed.
I mean, we took the decision that what do we want to look at? Like I just said, is the glass half full or half empty? And if you listen to this country, there is a lot of negativity. There is a lot of hopelessness. There is a lot of. It's quick to point out where the failures are. Is it possible to tell positive stories? Is it possible to say, all right, there are difficult situations we are in, but there are certain achievements that you can tick? Are there certain things that have gone right? Are there certain things that are in progress? And I think that is a positive way of media moving away from excessive negativity. That
you think Kenyan media were generally negative?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. I mean, we are quick to point out what's not working. But is it possible also to have a conversation where we can say this is working, this is not very well, but we're getting there.
All right. I can see in the Siasa pull-out now you focused, because this is a weekend edition, why Raila settled on Nyong'o. And this is a transition in the ODM party, the second biggest parliamentary party in Kenya right now in terms of numbers. Why Raila settled on Nyong'o? Many people in the current generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, may not really know the kind of politics that Professor Nyong'o has played up till where we are today. And many people would not understand why he was given this position. From your standpoint, why do you think ODM settled on Nyong'o?
Professor Nyong'o is an established politician. Quite apart from being the governor of Kisumu currently, is the founding Secretary General of ODM. So in that role, and given his academic background as a professor of political science, he is the ideological force behind ODM. And I think that's one of the factors that Raila Odinga looked at. And he has, of course, is one of the senior politicians of the party. And having great understanding of how the party works and the insights, and I think he's the right person to take charge as Raila pursues his African Union ambition.
Okay, but because some may have said probably it would have gone to James Orengo, who is a bit more vocal in terms of what the party does. I remember just recently he went against, he at least criticized the move to join Kenya Kwanza, at least the fact that some of the senior officials of the party became cabinet members. He opposed that. Do you think that contributed in him not being chosen as a successor?
Maybe, maybe not. But as our story says, there was a lot of jostling, and Orengo was among the names being thrown around as the possible successor. But again, of course, a decision has to be made in the end. The party has its own ways of looking at why this is the better option than the other.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this is a Siasa pullout inside the Star today. What should we expect going forward? Do you think Gachagua will still be dominating headlines into the weekend and next week, or will we have more of opposition politics?
Well, Gachagua will remain in the news, but I think the big story now, as this is the anniversary of the Kenya Kwanza administration, I think this is going to be the focus for Gachagua and the Kenya Kwanza administration.
All right.
I think those are the two big stories going forward.
Interestingly, the president is not even around. He marked his 2 years. He decided to go celebrate in Germany. Anyway, asante sana Bwana Henry Makori, editor, The Star newspaper. Remember,
Fred, probably
smart people read The Star.
Probably just kabla Malizane and I, there's something also that we have also focused on that other dailies haven't, the globetrotting governors. Now, there's something that I picked on this whole list. The Kakamega executive traveled to USA to attend a Luhya community meeting, and he used, get this, 1.35 million Kenyan shillings. Now, you also listed others, which you also mentioned that the media not really focusing on.
It was an important meeting. It was an important meeting. The Luhya community meeting was a very important one. And I think the 1.35 million shillings was also spent. But you know, that's another story there on the front page of the Star. Grab your copy. Grab yourself a copy of the Star today for more on politics and other news. Smart people read the Star.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Asante sana. All right. So tuangalie cartoons sasa.
Cartoons kuku mwisho, and some of this what he was talking about also is also reflected on the cartoons kama hiyo ya.
This is the People Daily cartoon on the People Daily,
yes.
And it has a Anyang' Nyong'o, and most people don't know Anyang' Nyong'o.
Yes,
they don't know his history in politics. Yes, so I am the new David, he says, but sawa naambiwa sababu amepewa fandili ile Jimmy alikuwa na fandili. So anasema the only problem is that David and Goliath are now friends. So he could be the new David, but what is the job to be done?
Yes. This is
matters to do with the deputy president and what's happening to him, because now you see the crown. The crown has constantly been on his head. Now kuna mtu mwingine pia kuna crown ile ya Murima.
Na natayarishiwa hiyo carpet.
Sasa red carpet yake ndio imekuwa rolled out ya deputy president imeisha. Yes. So maneno mingi, it's about stalled projects, it's not politics. That's what they insist. This is the Daily Nation.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the Daily Nation. And the Star maswala ya ODM, yeah.
These two gentlemen trying to balance, or rather now tuliacha kumuita ODM leader.
He's not ODM leader.
Now
he's a former ODM leader.
Yeah, former ODM leader. Amepatia
hata nguo imegeuka si blue, sasa ni green, ni AU.
Amepatia now Prof the basket of oranges.
Inaitwa kimwero. Shimwero. Sasa hii shimwero amebeba machungwa ndio anapewa.
Ameambiwa balance vizuri, weka kwa mgongo.
Iko kazi ya kubeba machungwa. So two of the cartoons are focused on the transition in ODM.
Yes.
One is focused on the Mount Kenya politics. This one, which is the Standard, talks about Adani deal. So this is the Kenya blindfolded signing the deal, Adani deal. Alafu the commentator says it's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
You see what they did there?
Yes.
Adani, it's a done deal. That's a cartoon on the Standard today. All right. Tuangazie maswala ya traffic sasa, because I think by now watu wengi wanafika town. So tukiteremka hivi, yes, you can see it's building up, especially on Jogoo Road, areas around Botela, Makadara, towards City Stadium roundabout. It's building up slowly, but it's normal Friday traffic, nothing much to worry about. A bit of a problem further back, probably around the Manyanja interchange. Outer Ring Road is looking curiously clear for a Friday. Tuende tuangalia the other usual trouble spot hapa Pangani interchange, nothing is happening, and this it's already 6:25 na hakuna traffic hapa. So from Kiambu Road or Thika Road, hata ungojei pale kwa ile bottleneck, unaenda tu nywe ukipita into town. Expressway, this is Wayakiwe, hata hiyo there's no traffic. All the way from Kangemi past Nairobi School, past Westlands into town, it's looking clear. And further, tukienda chini kule southern part of Nairobi, the Nairobi Expressway on the side of Mombasa Road, it's looking good. Past Cabanas, Imara Daima, Next Gen, Capital Center, nothing there. Langata Road too. From Carnival, Uhuru Gardens, it's green all the way. Okay, I can see a bit of something here on Mbagathi. We're going up towards town.
Just before that roundabout.
Just before you get to the roundabout, Ile City Mortuary roundabout. Lakini in Sabia Mata. Ngong Road looks a bit busy, yes, but it's because of the many junctions they have there at the Junction Mall, Nona Red Sport pale, Adams Arcade, na pia pale Prestige Plaza. Just a bit of it, but normal traffic, nothing to worry about. So it's typical Friday traffic. Watu hawana haraka ya kwenda.
Oh yes, so yes. But 047 is our SMS number, 0793-267-279 is our WhatsApp number. First off, conversation here, youth perspective. A lot has been happening this particular week. So mtuambie youth perspective ndio hiyo. This gentleman here,
Josephat Kamanya, will be in studio alongside Jerika Higa, Hans Rop and Kijana Stephen Derry to discuss 2 years of President William Ruto's administration.
Oh yes.
After that umesema ni mambo ni rumba.
Later on, rumba, mtuambie who is your favorite rumba artist, and actually I'm very interested to know who inspired you to get into rumba. I remember back then listening to my parents wakisikiza.
Back then ni hapa 2014 ndio unasema back then. COVID hapa ndio back then.
Utanichomea hivi leo na.
Anyway, Gen Z ni sawa.
Yes, so tell us who inspired you to get in and fall in love with Rumba. Zara Zinab as well as Dr. Nico will be joining us for that. And on the ones and twos, threes and fours, DJ Granite will be making sure your weekend starts in style with against the whole Rumba edition. Later on, tutakuwa tunaongea na Angela Tumu. She'll be representing Kenya for the Miss Tourism Africa, which will be happening in Nigeria later this particular year. So stick around for all these particular conversations. You can always be part of them. And Ringita _ number zetu ziko pale chini kwa screen. Usiogope ku reach out.
My handle on X is at Fred Ndimuli. You can also tweet us and be part of all the conversations today on X at TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya. It is definitely a feel-good Friday right here on Morning Cafe.
Oh yes.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge na
right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Today is Friday, the 13th of September, 2024. Yes, Friday 13th. I said it. It's considered unlucky by the superstitious Western cultures. And it's said that it can occur at least once every year, but in some years it occurs even up to 3 times. So I think this year, this is the first time it's occurring. Friday the 13th. It is also a special day for none other than President William Ruto. It is the same day 2 years ago when he took oath of office and became the 5th president of this great republic. So today, the main focus on most of the dailies is the 2 years of Ruto. On the Standard, they say 2 years of Ruto, Kenya Kwanza's broken promises, fighting crisis. On the Daily Nation, Ruto at 2, hits and misses. I think People Daily ndio walikuwa a bit bold. Kasema 2 years of agony. Yes. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning, political analysts Hans Rop and Josephat Kamanya. Karibuni sana. Of course, the big discussion is around the 2 years of William Ruto. This will cut across all the discussions we're having today. Interestingly, the president is not even around. He's traveled to Germany for some official engagement, so he's not around to mark this day here with us in Kenya. I'm sure he will mark it in a special way in Germany. Even just looking at the coverage by the dailies, hits and misses, 2 years of agony, broken promises, fighting crisis. Your quick assessment, Bwana Kamanya, of the 2 years of William Ruto.
Yeah, good morning to our viewers. Indeed, it's a special Friday because we are marking the 2 years of the new regime. And if I were to audit the regime, the administration, at best, I would give a disclaimer of opinion. Because there is no sufficient information to form an opinion. But if I were to be more generous, then it will still be, I mean, the rating is not proper. Disclaimer of opinion. Disclaimer of opinion. There is no sufficient evidence to give a proper opinion.
Is it too soon?
It's not too soon, it is just too bad. It is too bad. Because we have 2 years, we've had 2 years of a lot of activities. We've had 2 years of a lot of promises, engagements, and commitments. But, you know, there is always the output. There should be, which should come from an input. Every action has a reaction. We got into a new administration, very hopeful, hoping to have economic transformation. We have not realized that. Hoping to address the socio-economic issues. You see the conversation we are having now is not even about that. It's all purely political. So, an adverse opinion at best is what I would give.
If you were to give a rating of 1 to 10?
3.
3?
3.
Wow. Hans Rop, I'm sure yours would be a bit different. How would you rate on a scale of 1 to 10?
It's above average. I'd give it around 6.
6, okay.
Yeah. You know, there are things that we must appreciate that the government has achieved. However, there are things that we may feel that maybe they have gone slow as we expected. Maybe others have not been achieved. And many of those at times it depends with situation that is in the country. If we see the prices of some of the commodities that they were not as when the president took the hot, like the prices of unga, farm inputs, you see. So there are things, if you have to pinpoint them, you must appreciate that at least there's some progress. And there are a lot of foundations that have been made for other benefits to come ahead. Although there are things that we might say today that have not gone as we really expected. But at times when you have expectations or you give promise of a leadership that you take over, when you get in, you realize how boiling it is and you begin now to cool the temperature. And things may not flow exactly at your plan. But
are you saying William Ruto created his own problem? He made promises and then he realized, hey, reality is very different.
Yeah, there's a different reality on the ground. But studying it from the previous government, if we are critically enough to see the early stages of the presidents that have been there before, you realize that the current president is doing much better than them.
Oh, really? Yeah. But you say he's not doing so well. Do you think that this is probably the worst first 2 years of any presidency that we've seen in Kenya so far?
Evidently it is. because remember, the current president was not a new entrant into presidency. Unlike, that saying that he came into office and then he realized things are not as they were. No, that's not correct. The truth of the matter is he was a deputy president for 10 years. So he was the principal assistant to the previous administration, meaning he was privy to how government was being run. And even his platform, his campaign platform was, if only I was the president, I would have performed better. So expectations and hope were very high. And he came out guns blazing and he promised. But the first 2 years, clearly, what have we had? Protests, innocent killing, Gen Z revolution, a cabinet being sacked, and reshuffled. We have lost status as a country internationally because, we are not rating very well. It feeds into the AU conversation. So the first 2 years of the current administration have not really been good at all. It is the worst. And unfortunately, it's not going to get better because already we have been now, there is what we call perception hacking. We've already been introduced into a campaign mode for 2027, clearly, as every person can see. And the president knows that. Perhaps that's why he's not in the country, because there is nothing to celebrate. So it's a sorry and sad state we are in as a country, because this is not what we expected when we made this administration.
Hans, you have a better outlook, you have a different perspective of this administration, a more positive one. But do you agree that in comparison to the other 4 presidencies that we've seen, that this one is clearly the worst first 2 years of any presidency? Of course, things could get better, but in so far, 2 years in comparison to the other presidencies, this could actually be the worst.
No. No.
Which one is?
This one is much better. And let me give my facts in it. In Kenya, we have a short memory. And we love maybe judging things from what we see today. If you observe even the current situation that are going today on, there were the popularities of the like of Boniface Mwangi. All of a sudden, this young man, Kasmuel, came in, and that guy was forgotten. Today, we have Morara, and the others too are forgotten. And within no time, Kenyans have, we don't have sustenance of love. People will get tired of this guy, Morara, within a short time. In the next 1 or 2 months, Morara will not be there. Another person would have come. So as Kenyans, we love celebrating just anything that has come up on the social media, or either it is positive, we celebrate it. When it is negative, we fight it, like even what is going now about the Adani and so on, without even getting the fact details. And I asked myself, what is it that made President Kibaki so unpopular in 2007? That these questions about his re-election. And today we love and celebrate Kibaki and compare with the current president. If you remember so well, President Kibaki took it in 2002. He came up with a referendum to change the constitution in 2005. He didn't make it, and he's the president. He was so unpopular. And that's how went.
Within the first 2 years, there was a poll, and this was an international poll that ranked Kenyans as the most hopeful within the first year of Mwai Kibaki's administration. A poll conducted last year, we were nowhere. I'm asking this in comparison, the first 2 years of any presidency. Of course, things change, popularity rises, others drop. But for the first 2 years of all the presidencies, 5 presidencies we've had, the first 2 years,
Fred,
in comparison.
There's no any poll that has defined Kenya for the last 2 years, Ed.
As the most hopeful?
You need also to mention that.
That is the most hopeful?
The most growing economy. See, it is. You also have to mention both. There's some good things that we need to celebrate today, as much as we don't have perfection of everything that has been done.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a story on the front page of the Daily Nation that talks about a striking nation inside Kenya's wave of protests. This is an indication of an agitation within the masses. People are simply not happy. People want to come out and speak out about what they're suffering. These challenges we are facing as a country have existed for long. They've not just been under this presidency. How come this time round we're having more people coming out to protest and say no to how this administration is working. What is so different about this administration? Because challenges, even in schools and healthcare, have existed even during Kibaki's time. We didn't see the kind of protests we're seeing right now.
Well, and this is where I feel my brother Hans, and I really hope his people of Misop do not watch, are not awake to hear what he's saying this morning, that this country is hopeful and has been rated very well. I mean, we have to be fair and very pragmatic, because I keep saying, this is nothing personal against the president or any other person in leadership. This is about our country. Kenya is our nation. This is ours to make or break. And we have chosen to make it. That's why we have to continue pushing for good governance and social justice. And when you look now at the state of the nation, the state of the state as is today, it is a striking nation. You've had doctors, you've had teachers, we've had the airport workers. Every corner you look, there is agitation.
The lecturers are going on strike.
The lecturers, there is a lot of notice on strikes that will be coming. Why? Because the public policy that is supposed to be sustained, driven, and advanced by the administration is not addressing the needs of us, of Kenyans, in all quarters. And that feeds to the trust deficit, that people do not have enough trust that this administration can actually deliver. You've heard of a taxation, we've had a lot of misplaced priorities, the avoidable housing, because now it's no longer affordable, it's just simply avoidable. The chief, the SHA, all these organs that are being created have really not come out to embrace the populace and bring them on board where they feel represented. Again, remember, a lot of people, civil servants, have experienced what you'd call salary cuts through statutory deductions because of the increase on this NHIF, NSSF, yada yada. So the agitation is real vis-a-vis the cost of living. You may say unga is going down, but how much of that transforms into economic activities? It is not just about the buying power, because to increase the buying power, it's a twofold. You must have produce that is available and affordable, and people must have enough money to spend. We don't have that, There is this created inflation. Much as if unga was 200, now it's maybe 110, 120, 140. Still, it is not affordable to a lot of people. So if you look at the matrix of economic growth and development, and then vis-a-vis the trust in administration, people feeling inclined to support, the variation is too wide.
Yes.
So we are not in a good space, and the earlier we start addressing the issues and letting the president and the administration and everybody know, the better. The earlier we start coming out and calling out the wrongs that we are seeing, irregardless of who is in that office, the better, because this country belongs to us. Mm-hmm. Yes, we were rated very well when Kibaki took over. We did better in terms of rating when Uhuru came into office. We were able to attract a lot of international investors. A lot of huge projects came into the country. If you remember that time, somehow we got it wrong during the Uhuru era, and some of the companies went to Ethiopia. Since then, and this was around the second term of Uhuru, we've not been doing better. The hope was this time around, with this new administration of the President Ruto, we are going to rekindle that and be on the path of development and growth. He did that the very first few months. He came out, he was around marketing the country. There was a bit of a good rapport and feeling towards Kenya. But as soon as around 7 months into administration, it's been a downhill up to now.
The discontent is definitely palpable, Hans. Any president, however popular, and this is not just in Kenya, usually suffers a hit on the approval ratings once they get into office. And that is obvious because the burden of administration is, as you said, the reality is different. But you cannot ignore the discontent that many Kenyans feel right now. Yes, and I agree, there are some positive things that maybe can be enumerated. a list of positive things that this administration has done. But if you ask Kenyans, they are not content with how this administration has been conducting things. Are you saying that this discontent is due to misinformation?
I think so. I think actually so, because we have a new government today which is doing their stuff in broad daylight, other than previous government that have been there that have been trying to implement things in silence. Do you know why today we have a lot of strikes, we have a lot of kind of speaking in social media? Because democracy has been uplifted in this country. We have a government that puts everything on the table. We will be honest today that over 70% of Kenyans didn't know anything about finance bill. But today we have a government that puts everything on the table, and therefore we are able to discuss and criticize it. Going forward, everything that the government is going to do will be discussed by Kenyans, and there'll be open information. That is a way to develop Kenya. And by making these things open, will make someone else think that the current government is not performing. If we write down the things that this government has achieved so far, we will be surprised that we may only end up to discussing a negativity that is in the media or popularly out here for us, other than discussing things that have been achieved. So I want to tell you that previously there's been a poor communication. Today we have a better communication going ahead, and therefore we are able to judge government so much, which is okay. But I would really ask every Kenyan that let us criticize our government in a more positive way. Appreciate what we think has been done and criticize what hasn't been done well, and we pursue for it to be done well. Not to criticize, to discredit a government always. You cannot wake up today and want to speak negative of your country or the leadership that is there and assume that the leadership is doing purely nothing.
Let's focus on the budget-making process, for example.
Yeah.
President William Ruto has presided over two budget-making processes, 2023 and 2024.
Yeah.
The Finance Act of 2023 has been declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Then the Finance Bill of 2024 was rejected because of protests. What do you think that can be described as? What is a cause of this? Could it be a level of incompetence?
Let me give
Warakamaya, because
I wish I'd answer that, but okay.
Fred, it's not whether, it's not a question of whether, it's a level of incompetency. It is a confirmation that this is the most incompetent National Assembly we've had, towards the budget-making process. And we've tried to highlight this. It's a bit worrying, because if it happens that Hans is a proxy to the advisory of the presidency, that's the reason we're having all this chaos. Because we have to work with what is really happening. Let's not be imaginary. You have to be very pragmatic. This is the administration that has performed worst. We created it. We campaigned for it. We formed this government. So we knew what to expect. You've put it very correct, that two finance bills have been contested. This is the one government, the only government, that has experienced a lot of litigations coming from the lawmakers. Another confirmation of incompetency. This is it's not about, this government has not been open and forthright with the Kenyans. Because if it were, we would not be questioning the Adani deal. If it were, the finance bill would not have gotten to where it got. And remember, it ended with loss of life. It just did not happen with a protest only. This is the one government where today we have a president and a deputy president who are both running their own different fractions in government. It has not happened before. Even the fallout between the former president and the current president happened in the second term. This is happening actually started in the first term of their regime.
The first 2 years?
The first year of their regime, because this is the second year now, which we are marking today. Therefore, to try and defend this government, it is difficult. Because every Kenyan is dissatisfied. The public policy has not been formulated to serve the interest of the Kenyans. And we are the ones who made this government. We must realize that as Kenyans, we are not at the mercy of the president. We are not at the mercy of the leadership. They are there to serve us. We've provided guidelines on how we want to be governed. That is the constitution. It is the only government that has continued to violate the same constitution under the disguise of the rule of law. Court orders are being violated by the same government. So how can we then turn around and say that it is doing very well, that it is serving the people, and it is a very open government? I would want to be persuaded.
Pundits say this is incompetence. The fact that budget processes have been contested.
My feedback to that is, today we have 2 years. We've had a budget for the last 2 years. The president has been even public to say that out of the budget that we have today, 6 out of 10 shillings, we pay our debt. We need to be aware of such before we want to imagine that the whole budget is being used today. And then you remember the 6 out of 10 shillings is paying an interest. We are not yet at the state whereby we are paying a debt. We are just paying the interest that we have as a country. 2, there are things we need to have well. Fred, and I want to imagine you as a media personality, you need to be having these facts. That when President Ruto took over this government, there were many pending bills of over 900 billion. So President Ruto went into government whereby today he has to manage debt, he has to manage to pay the pending bill, because you cannot offer other services today. You can never ask for services from other service providers today, and you don't want to pay the pending bills. So how do you manage the paying of pending bills and service providers?
Is it too much for the president?
It's not too much for the president.
Too much work. He's not able to manage.
Let me tell you, and that's what the president has really tried a lot. Let me tell you one thing. This is, even if you bring the best brain in the world, that is the situation in Kenya is today. You manage it and you make it better. This guy in this seat today has really done much better, and that's why today we can even celebrate. My friend is saying that we can celebrate the achievement that President Ruto has done. Just what he's trying to discuss about is saying affordable housing instead of being affordable housing. We must appreciate that affordable housing has also employed some youths, over 150,000 people working today. And if a documentary is done, that will be found to be true. We must accept that fertilizer has been reduced from 7,000 to 2,500 shillings today. And as you go ahead, there will be food sustenance in the country. That's how you help people, by making sure first there's no hunger in the country. We must celebrate also the dollar. The dollar, you can realize there's management, and dollar has come down, fuel prices has come down. There's a situation also of management going on. Going ahead, we have a lot of hopes, because we've seen whatever the government has done before. We cannot sit here today and say that the government has done nothing for the last 2 years. That will be a lie.
Okay. One thing that President William Ruto has definitely managed to do is handle the politics of this nation. That politically we are at a point where all political sides appear very pacified. This rarely happens. Give it to him, Bwana. When it comes to politics, he's quite the master.
Unfortunately, that's not what we need. We are no longer in a political moment. We are in an economic moment as a nation. I mean, globally, there is no one cares about the politics, much as they drive everything. But it's about the economic growth of a specific country. He is the one president who has managed to subdue the opposition. He has disenfranchised them to an extent that he has no one to oversight, in a manner of speaking. That is not an achievement. To sit here and say that the avoidable housing is an achievement, I would want to see how that is compared to the funding model of the education system. Do we just want to have casual laborers, across the country? Who are going to be the engineers? It's only through the education system. I want to look at the health system. Our health facilities are dilapidated. Health is a devolved function. It is not working in any county. Just a few governors really trying to keep things running. So it's a matter of perspective. If you go the micro way, trying to see the president came and launched a road and it was done, you'll say he has achieved. But at what cost? There is also value for money. Yeah, there is also the impact. There is also the community impact. There is also the economic impact. Therefore, there is a micro and a macro perspective. If you're looking at the rating of this nation today, where we are, and the performance of the administration, like I said, I would give a disclaimer of opinion. I do not have sufficient information to form any good opinion at all. And if I'm persuaded and pushed against my will, it will be an advance opinion.
Wow.
Because there is a lot of misstatements, there's a lot of misinformation. We've seen Morara coming out and saying, all these projects that have been launched, here we are. Nothing has happened. But remember, when they were being launched, there was a budget. Every event comes with a budget. So not just millions, but close to billions of money have gone to waste. You know, who is accountable? We must realize this is our money. We are the taxpayers. Therefore, it is only prudent to call the administration to order without fear or favor, because that is our right.
All right.
Yeah.
And of course, we continue looking at President William Ruto's scorecard 2 years on since he took over the reins of this country. The Kenya Kwanza administration talks about 5 pillars: agriculture, MSMEs, ICT, superhighway, housing, and universal healthcare. What do you think? How would you rate President William Ruto's performance so far? Today is Friday, the 13th of September, the year 2024, exactly 2 years since President William Ruto took oath of office. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be having more panelists for this discussion as we continue taking a look at President William Ruto's scorecard.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching a Morning Cafe right here, TV47. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. We continue looking at President William Ruto's 2 years in office, today being September 13th, also a Friday the 13th. And the president is not in the country. He traveled to Germany for some official engagement, so he's not around to celebrate or to mark the 2 years in office. I'm here with the analysts Hans Rop, Josephat Kamanya. Now joining the panel, we have Kijana Steve Nderi and Njeri Kahiga. Karibuni sana. To Njeri and Kijana Steve, we just before the break, we handled quite a lot of this, but the first question I asked is, how would you rate, on a rating of 1 to 10, how would you rate the performance of William Ruto in the first 2 years, Njeri?
I've always said it's below par, because if in 2024, we are still talking about scandals daily, every other day. If in 2024 we are still discussing about demonstrations after people say that maandamano ya Gen Z should come to an end, we've seen the teachers strike, we've seen the airport employees strike, we've seen the university students strike, we've seen the university students, lecturers on strike, and we have seen even the matatu people go on strike. So it means nothing is working in this nation. Yesterday we saw the Marikiti demonstrations. So at the end of the day, you realize 2 years down the line, everybody is still complaining of incompetency, of corruption, of scandals left, right, and center. But again, the question always narrowed down. Assuming the president was the worst person, what would we talk about when we talk of the parliament, the Senate? Because if he was the worst person by now, we would have impeached him and said he can no longer take charge of this nation. If the parliament was strong enough to call him out, the Senate itself was doing its work, we would not get here. So it's a whole process that has been engineered by different entities, left, right, and center. Look at TSCC. We saw them handing over assets to the same corrupt person that everybody in this nation is complaining about. So why would you take corrupt money from politicians and hand them over to the most worst corrupt person? So it's a deal of we are simply changing cups of from one cup of tea to another cup of tea. And I think the problem in this nation will not stop exactly at the president. It's about every other government entity. What is the Kenya police doing about it? What is the Interior Department doing about it? When we talk about abductions, is it only the problem of the president? No. It's the problem of every other sector that is involved in these things. When we talk of brutal killings in the country, the still and recovered bodies of people who died back then during maandamano, when we saw bodies at that swamp in Kware. So at the end of the day, it's not really a President Ruto problem. It's a problem of everybody around him not wanting to be honest enough and doing their jobs.
Okay. Stephen Derry, what's your take? On a scale of 1 to 10?
From a scale of 1 to 10, I give Ruto 3.
3. Okay.
President Ruto got into leadership at a point where the country was rising from the ruins of COVID-19. We were at a point where in 2021 we had an economic growth rate after COVID of about 7.5%. By then the global economic growth rate was around 5.1%. Right now in 2024 we have dropped to I think around 5.3%. That shows by itself that there is something that President Uhuru was doing that President Ruto is not doing. We were in a time where we had a lot of policies that were supposed to help Kenyans, that were supposed to alleviate the economic pain that they were going through the time of COVID. And when President Ruto came, he has had an angle of overtaxing Kenyans, of putting the burden on Kenyans. And what he didn't realize is that when you overburden Kenyans, the economy cannot grow, because the economy majorly can only be grown by the private sector. So what President Ruto is doing wrong, that previous regimes, especially the Kibaki regime, was doing right. When President Kibaki came, he realized that the only way to contribute to the economic growth of the country was to focus on empowering the private sector. So once you give money and you make money available to the private sector, MSMEs, SMEs, then you're able to promote economic growth, you're able to create jobs. Right now, the unemployment rate in Kenya has grown by 1% in the last 3 years, in the last 2 years. That shows just how much, when we try to create jobs through infrastructure projects like the housing project, we can never really meet the demand. And so one thing that the President Ruto has really failed is going into power and having a team of leaders and cabinet and the whole management system that is focused on infrastructure projects, because that is where major corruption occurs. That is where you can inflate budgets and maybe get a cut and maybe get something. So I feel, in my opinion, I am not really saying what I'm really assuming that it is entirely the case. I feel that the leadership that we have right now is more focused on the gains they can make as individuals rather than the gains this country needs. And so that is why we are at a point where the economy is not growing, because the private sector is not growing and the private sector is not creating any jobs. Right now, accessing funds or accessing funds or capital to start up a business is so difficult than it was 2 years ago. Right now, interest rates are so much high. Right now, the banks are really focusing on the risk. They look at Kenyans as high-risk borrowers. So you also have a point where the government is highly borrowing from the local economy. So that makes funds not available for the local mwananchi, because banks will always look at the low-risk borrower, which is the government. So we are at a point where we have really focused on economic infrastructure projects that are not even getting completed. And that's why you've seen that the people have started a public audit on infrastructure projects, because we are starting new projects, looking at maybe what can we eat in these new projects without finishing old projects. And we are thinking that we can create jobs by building roads, by building infrastructure. That one will not work. And I believe that our economic system, the economic policy, the economic philosophy of President Ruto has really gone wrong. And it's unfortunate that good politicians make very bad leaders.
Yeah. And the Kenya Kwanza administration and public policy was based on 5 pillars. There's agriculture, MSMEs, ICT, housing and healthcare, UHC. And we see that these are the same areas where a lot of criticism has come. On the issue of agriculture and the fertilizer, there was a major fake fertilizer scandal within the first 2 years. And the issue of MSME, the creation of that Hustler Fund that was supposed to change lives for so many people. The Hustler Fund is experiencing its own problems right now. People are taking loans and not repaying. Matters housing, affordable housing, that is one of the issues that has been highly been criticized. And UHC, the shift from NHIF to SHIF, enough problems there as well. And people wonder that these are the main things that the president wants to do. Yet it would appear that is the same place where he's finding most opposition and most criticism. Do you think that probably it's time for him to reset his approach to some of these things?
Fred, president is doing much better.
Much better than
previous predecessors in the last 2 years. And some of the kind of foundation is placed on the key pillars you said, which Kenya Kwanza it stood in. You'll realize that if we can be patient a little bit, we'll see much kind of benefits we'll get. We are living in a time whereby today everything that happens, we politicize it. We are not on a honest opinion that how much this has been done better, we are not happy with this. We cannot say that everything is wrong. Like we've said today, in the previous government of President Uhuru, they used to subsidize through the millers. So if you subsidize unga through the millers, you'll not have sustainability of it. because even the new production that is still coming in will be more expensive. So President Ruto came in with an idea that let's continue feeling a bit painful purchasing an expensive unga, but let us subsidize mbolea so that we empower a farmer to produce more by getting an affordable fertilizer. Therefore, we'll make our country to be food secure. And that's what we've seen. Reducing the price of mbolea from 7,000 to 2,500 is a great achievement. We must accept that. Anybody who do not admit this as a problem. So we must accept, because this one, it encourages a farmer to increase his production and also get good quality. You've talked of an issue whereby we've had issues of fake fertilizers. There are people in court, but it was not largely affected. It was a small portion of it, and there are people in court today. There are people who have been stopped from working, even in NCBP, and so on, those who procured and so on. And we want to appreciate that kind of, that's what we need. And that is the only way to do. When a contractor has a problem, you cannot go and kill them. They have to go through a court process. However, in Kenya, we assume that if somebody today is found of certain corruption, that person should be hanged. We have a constitution to follow. We don't do things as we want. So if today Hans is found to be corrupt of certain kind of issue, I'll have to be taken to court, and I face the court process. So if Ruto, the president, and the government have taken these people to court, what else do you want him to do? That is the best he will do. And if you are given today a contract, because this is an open tender, if somebody wins this tender and they are given a chance to import mbolea, and then maybe there's a problem, maybe they import the fertilizer that is not right, how do you place the back that this government is the one that imported that mbolea? If this mbolea is imported that is not right, is not in good condition to be used by a farmer, then you take that contractor to the...
Okay. I think generally there's agreement that probably the country is headed in the wrong direction. That's a feeling, right? The president got a very unique chance to reset his administration a couple of months ago after the protests by the Gen Z. Did you feel that he got it right? Do you feel that probably, as he says, pain now, relief later, do you feel that this time round the president got his formula right?
If he had gotten it right, yesterday he would not have promised us about fishing from the river, Nairobi River. Because, and I pity my friend, my brother Hans, if he happens to fall for that in a few years he'll be fishing from the Nairobi River. I want to pray that we will see, he said the project commences on 1st of October. I want to see how far that one goes. What am I saying? I mean this, Fred. And Kenyans are very woke nowadays. You know, we are privy to information. We are able to understand whatever is happening in our nation. We understand the constitution. This is not the time to tell people, wait and see. Please bear with me. No, we've had 2 years of promises. We had a whole year of campaigning, and that's a platform we got elected on. But when it comes to deliverables, you've highlighted very well the 5 key pillars of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. All of them are shaky. It's ICT, health, housing, all of them are shaky. And a house built on shaky ground is bound to collapse. This is what we're experiencing right now. So to try and paint a different picture about this administration, especially after 2 years today, is really not being very just to the very same person, the president of the nation. Because if we don't tell him the truth, we are not helping him, we are not helping ourselves. If we don't speak the truth, then we are laying a foundation for continuous errors for the next maybe 3 years, if this administration will last that long. If the president had gotten the message from the X conversation, from the Gen Z revolution that is still on, we would have seen a lot of changes now. But unfortunately, it is the same old trick that is happening. If the president was performing, and this is where I would want my friend Hans to persuade me to see, perhaps I could be missing something. But if the president was performing, Kenyans would not have called him to come for a conversation. You know, it took killings, it took protests, it took occupying parliament, it took Ruto must go for him to start listening. But he has remained tone deaf, you know. And unfortunately, as my fellow panelist said, she said that people are more driven by, and also Steve echoed that, by what they are able to gain. We all know that the launching of the climate action project yesterday is about the funding. Remember, we had in August last year, we had the convention.
Summit, yes.
Yeah, the summit, you know, and a lot of grants were meant to be coming. Now they are here. We have to justify those budgets. And that's why you're going to see a lot of ghost projects being launched that we not see, will not go to fruition. So it's a question of accountability. It's a question of integrity. It's a question of poor governance. This is what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Not just him as a president, but his entire team.
Yes.
His entire team.
And we see a return of the hashtag Ruto must go. It's trending at number 4 this morning. I saw you burning with something, Njeri. What did you want to talk about? I'm sure it's it's about what Hans had said.
I was just shocked, you know. I am really shocked because in 2024, somebody is telling us that Ruto has done, the president has done way better for the last 2 years than his previous other presidents. And I'm wondering, during Uhuru's time, have we had as many strikes as we've had with this regime within 2 years? I mean, Uhuru was put into a proposition of him having to incorporate Baba his last term. In his first term, he has had to swallow most of his words. I'm going through, this is Daily Nation, and they can say for 2 years, the president has been fighting one fire after the other. You know, can you imagine, literally, amidst all these crazy things that are happening in this nation, somebody still wants to wake up and defend this regime. They can't even defend themselves. They are tired of defending themselves. You saw the CS yesterday at another TV station. He cannot even, he was even hoping time of that interview can just be cut short because he has no answers as to why you are into number 14 of the process of private, making our airport now a private entity for that years. And you are making the country have to ask you why you are in number 14 of whatever due diligence that you are doing. Why didn't you inform us from the word go? Why has it been a secret? It's not a drug dealing deal, you know, it's a nation. Everything is at stake. We've built that airport with our money. It's Kenyans who have been paying for everything. Then you wake up one morning, you want to privatize it. Then we listen to somebody telling us that this government has been doing well. The president himself, when Gen Z were having Mandamano, did not leave the country for so long, almost a month plus. Right now, when he thinks he has brought Baba into the equation, he now has at least some peace and he feels he can walk around. But then again, as he's walking out, the university union, here it is, we want to strike. Students, here we are. A comrade talking about the funding model is not something we can do right now. Everything else is a mess. And we are talking about, this is last week, this week was when we were doing 2 years of him since he got into power. What has he done with his manifesto? How many boxes have been ticked? He has ticked more boxes in having to swallow his words than more of what his manifesto was talking about. So as young people, it's very depressing to listen to somebody who wants to sanitize this government. Mm-hmm. By the way, even them, they are really hoping that somebody else can take up the job of defending themselves because they can't even explain what they are doing, you know. And it's very sad when the whole world is looking at us, when we talk of a whole day of our airports not operating, and then somebody wants to tell us that the government is doing well. We are doing well by selling half of our nation. You want us to bring Indians into this nation for them to come with their people, and then you go around telling us that now it's time for youths to be shipped abroad for jobs. So we allow people to come in, work in our country. Then for us, we allow youths to be exported for labor. It cannot happen. It's very sad.
Okay.
Fred, can I give a response to that kindly?
I'll give you an opportunity.
Yeah. Let me just respond to Njeri a minute. You know, at times it's good we display facts than having populism discussion. if I say Ruto has done better for the last 2 years than his predecessors, let's table facts. There's nothing called everything. Let's table facts. What President Uhuru did in his first 2 years, what President Kibaki did in his first 2 years, and state whatever President Ruto has done in the last 2 years. Let us not just use everything, this, wherever. I want us to state facts. If we discuss today about affordable housing, what President has done, you know, there is short term and there is a long term. One of the purpose of affordable housing for any developing country is to ensure that we do not build up on small farms in the village, because we'll not have sustainable farm arable land to sustain our country for food security. If you do your research, you realize that only 10% of Kenyan land can be arable to feed the country. So we cannot continue living in those kind of 10% piece of land, selling it into small plots of 1 acre, 2 acres, until in future we might not have a place to farm to feed our country. Therefore, affordable housing main intention is to move people to live in urban and leave farms in the village to be done for, to do some farming to feed the country. And therefore, that is the long-term intention of the affordable housing. But now we create affordable housing too, is to create employment for the youth. That is one. Two, we've also seen, I've indicated here before, what President Ruto has done about subsidizing fertilizer, other than subsidizing unga through the millers. And we've seen the effects of that and the price of fertilizer today. We've seen management of dollar and where it is today. We've seen fuel dropping, either slow by slow. It is an indication that there is a progress going ahead. Let us also discuss about, I think we'll discuss about Adani later. About privatization, we need to have the facts about privatization. You cannot come to a national TV and say we are selling an airport. We need to have facts about it before we discuss that. And I think we'll discuss about that later. Again, something about strikes. There have been strikes I've watched. Even in 60s, 70s, there have been strikes all along.
So it's a normal thing.
It's not normal. Let me tell you one thing. We are, and I've said here before, we are in a situation today that we have an open government that releases off more things to the public than previous government. Previous government have been making decisions which at times we are not informed in Kenyans, and therefore there is minimal strikes. Okay. Again, some of the strikes that we have today are based on agreements that were done with previous government on maybe improvement of salaries, on other programs, and the current government inherits the liabilities and assets of previous of the government at state. Fred. And the government still, let's just hold on. And the government today, you will respond. The government today has had a discussion with anyone who strikes. The strikes that we have at Kenya today is about privatization. They have been given a document to discuss for the next 10 days. And then they will respond.
Fred.
Okay. You get it?
Yes.
I simply want him to answer me one question.
Yes.
And this question, I'm not an advocate, but let it just be yes or no. Have you bought any affordable housing unit yourself?
Okay.
As an individual?
Let's not even focus on the affordable housing.
That's how unaffordable it is.
Kijana Steve Nderi, do you feel that we may be too harsh or too unfair to this administration, that the situation in itself is already dire, and the president came into office and just found that it's a lot of work, and in 2 years, genuinely, he may not have done as we had expected?
Well, I do not think that the government has. I have given figures of the economic growth rate, the unemployment rate, and I have shown you that the government is only getting it worse. For example, on the matters of affordable housing, I've seen that they promised 250,000 units per year. They've done 94,000 units. They promised 19 county aggregation industrial parks, but they are incomplete. We have a problem of priorities in this government. And as I said, we are focusing on where we can get small wins for our pockets rather than where we can get the small wins for the people. I do not think that we are really unfairly judging them, because of course we understand that Kenya was not at a good place economically, but we could have made deliberate policies. And I believe the reason why many Kenyans bought their promises, I do not want to call them lies, I want to be a bit fair, was because they promised that they had a plan to recover the economy, they had a plan to create jobs. So what is happening? We are not creating jobs. We are not improving the economy. The state of the economy is actually getting worse. If you look at the fuel prices were low. And when they came in, they had to shoot, and then now they celebrate that they are coming down. I have said it before, that Kenyans have gradually been prepared for a philosophy where we embrace mediocrity, where we are supposed to, for example, celebrate that we have built some of this affordable housing. We are supposed to celebrate drops in fuel prices, rather than looking at the actual issues. And this is what is making the government uncomfortable, because now we have had for a long time people who have not been civically educated. And that is why people have been buying promises left, right, and center. And that is when the Gen Z, or rather the young people, came up, and we decided that now we are going to read the finance bill. And that is when we were able to identify that there were flaws. There was a plan to overtax us. The current state of information in Kenya is also very high. If you look at how Kenyans got to know about their Adani, if you look at the previous administration, we made noise for 10 years that we wanted to be shown the contract for SGR, and we never saw it. Right now, there is a way in which the people, because back then you would only find it from some of the opposition leaders. Right now, the people have joined the opposition. The people have taken over the opposition leadership of the country, and we are actually taking this government into account. We are actually forcing them to be accountable. And now, let's try to be fair to President William Ruto. If you look at the foreign travel, it's actually short by over 5 times what Uhuru was doing. If you look at the budgets for state officers, if you look at the austerity measures that they have spoken about, for example, we spoke about the First Lady and the Second Lady, and we said that we wanted their budgets to be cut to zero because we did not find the importance of that. We also have a parliament which is actually in bed with the executive. One of the biggest problems, and that is why we had a Constitution of Kenya 2010, was the separation of powers. We wanted a situation where every institution, every arm of government would keep the other in check. Parliament would keep the executive in check, and then the judiciary would keep both in check. Right now, we have had situations where we see clearly the parliament is actually passing laws and policies that are against the people. So one thing that we must actually fix in this country will only get better once we establish institutions that are stronger and that can outrun any
Let's focus on Parliament as well, and the role it has played in this past 2 years of William Ruto's administration. It was a good plan, politically at least, to ensure that he has a control of the Houses of Parliament, and he has done that. Now, with even the inclusion of ODM, he's even had better control. How this control is used may have contributed to a huge extent in the way this administration has been working. How much of that do you think should Parliament take the blame for, and the realization by the general public that Parliament as an institution may not necessarily serve their purpose has forced, as Steve says, has forced Kenyans to come out themselves and do the oversight that Parliament should be doing? He's definitely going to have, if the first 2 years have been hard, the next 3 years are going to be hell for the president.
Well, baptism by fire. Because when I look at the performance of our current highly incompetent National Assembly, it's very telling on how, as you know, Steve has rightly put it, they've gone to bed with the presidency, with the executive. And the unfortunate bit is that the separation of powers has not been fully practiced. And the president seemed to have known, because again, remember, he came into office through a very thin margin of a win, and therefore he needed to try and parade and marshal a lot of the small political parties. Remember, Kenya Kwanza is a coalition into his side. That's why you saw, after getting into office and being sworn in, the members of parliament from Jubilee, they were bought off too, and they crossed over to Kenya Kwanza, yet they belong to the Azimio side. Because you need to have at least a simple majority in the National Assembly for you to be able to run the government business. Failure to which you're going to have a lot of attrition, you know, people will run you down. Like you saw, I think we experienced that with President Kibaki, when at one point he did not have a majority in the National Assembly. So the president, that was a good move to try and have more members of parliament on his side to try and move the business agenda of the government. However, the incompetency of our members of parliament failed him. Because it is okay for a government to have a majority, but we must also realize that constitutionally speaking, once you get into the National Assembly as a member of parliament, you are not just bound to the political party that you are elected on. You are not just bound to serve the members of the constituency that voted for you to be in the National Assembly. You are a legislature. You are there to make laws that affect all the other Kenyans, that are represented by all the other members of parliament that are in the floor, regardless of their political formation they come from. That is where they fail their mandate, and that is their primary mandate, to legislate, to make laws, to oversight the government. But they have failed on that. Now, the president has gone further. He's tried to take us back, quote unquote, to a one-party system, because ODM has been subdued now. Azimio is fragmented, so and that's why the Kenyans, the civilians, have had to assume the role of opposition. There is no telling, because right now we're in the budget making process. There is no telling on how the next finance bill will be voted on. There is no telling on how they're going to respond, because the ODM fraternity, they are in bed now with the Kenya Kwanza. The House is united, in a manner of speaking. We are only now trying to count on the independent candidates, and there are very few, because that then would become the voice of the people. So it's a risky place we are at, because we have been failed by the National Assembly, and that's why Parliament ought to be disbanded in whatever form we can achieve that as civilians. If we need to recall all the MPs, we need to start that process. Okay. Because for the next 3 years, we cannot have a National Assembly that is not exercising the delegated authority that have been given by the civilians.
And that realization by the general public that the National Assembly may not serve us the way we hope it would, has given a rise to this new civic realization, where individuals, just general members of the public, are going down to check on projects, and we've seen that with Morara Kebaso, and we've seen the kind of agitation and even the kind of oversight. Now Kenyans are demanding that the documents about Adani be made public, that we need to see from point one to the end. What exactly is this deal about? That was not there before. Even with the SGR deal, we were told it would be made public. It wasn't, and we moved on. Now, it means that going forward for the next 3 years, the president will have to keep on explaining to Kenyans his each and every move. That will make it even harder for the president. Now, do you think that he has created this problem for himself by engineering, making sure he muzzled the National Assembly, and now he has to face the general public through town halls and other daily meetings just to explain his moves?
If he has marshaled the National Assembly to maybe to some point, but for the good of the country, I support whatever it's going on with the public, like what the likes of Morara doing it. It is good. It puts the president on check. This is going to ensure there is more delivery to the people, other than doing things in a silent way. Demanding for the agreement of Adani and the government to be open, the best thing to do, so that at least we know whatever is there and there are no loopholes that can be used to do wrong. I've heard Steve saying that at times these are opportunities where people used to make money, which is true. But what do we need to do? By pushing the government to make everything public, reduces the chances whereby they can be overpricing, they can be skewed ways of tendering. Unless now, this is going to be made public, and therefore, we are going to have a proper delivery. We need to have that kind of civic education. And therefore, I told you, we need to support it. But criticizing the government with the same kind of knowledge and chance we have in the media, we need to do it by appreciating whatever the government has done and criticizing whatever we think they're not doing it well. What is the purpose of criticizing? To make sure that the government delivers. We do not have to criticize it like we aid the leadership that is there. We need to do it to push the leadership that is there to do things good, to do good things for us. As I've said before, Fred, 3 years to the next election is a lot of time. We need President Ruto. We need that member of parliament in. We need that governor inside in the leadership today. We cannot waste 3 years because we want to fight to aid the leadership. We need to fight up, get the current leadership in place
into a point of delivery, not to show like we hate them. We need to push them to deliver to us, to tell them you're doing wrong on this, you've done well on this. That's exactly what we need to do. Other than to act like we are fighting everything that has been done, and you now want to paint the leadership that is there as if it is dirty. Lastly, why do we need this government? Do we need the parliament? At times we want to assume that the parliament is doing wrong to Mwananchi or doing anything against the will of the people. Not necessarily that. There have been just like about the finance bill, there was a miscommunication from the government to Mwananchi. They only assume that once it is done in the parliament, it's a done deal. But going forward, everyone needs to be informed about this. Because the purpose of parliament, or members of Kenya Kwanza in parliament, is to push more the agenda of the business of the government and to ensure that the kind of pillars that they place in, they told the country that are going to deliver, they must keep it to check. Because if you go to political parties' laws, you'll realize that every member in parliament has to follow what their party stands in. You cannot go to parliament today and say, I'm going to vote as the way I want. The party will discipline you. You have to follow as the party does. So if there are targets if there are ways today that ODM want to vote, like they were voting against the government and voting against the finance bill, you remember if those kind of members of parliament who voted for yes, ODM went ahead and saying they were going to discipline them. So it gives that you will not have an independent thinking more as a member of parliament. You have to follow the party rules. Okay. It's not so don't say it's the president, so it is the government. There are rules of Kenya Kwanza, as UDA party, there are rules of ODM, there are rules of any party. And if you go against it, there'll be a disciplinary for it.
You see, I don't want to look as if I am so much on my panelists pale mwisho. Because serikali ni yao and anaweza kuwa yeye ndio serikali na hatujui. But let me ask you for a minute. At what point do you tell us that the parliament is there to operate business ya serikali? If parliament was put into place to run government affairs, then they should be appointed by the government. Parliament exists for Wanjiko. That is where they are voted. They are empowered by a vote. The first thing a parliamentarian should do when they're in any senate or parliament or any county assembly is only one thing: to represent Wanjiko. You've never heard of a senator's role is to represent the government of Kenya? Their first priority is to represent Wanjiko. According to the constitution, the order of priority comes Wanjiko first, then you can follow your political party. But you have to first follow what your Wanjiko is telling you. Let us stop this misinformation that because I'm elected by PNU, I need to do what PNU does. If that was the case, then political parties should be voting in for members of parliament and senators. Why do we give Wanjiko the mandate, the power, the sovereign power to vote for these people so that they can go to parliament, represent us? Government does not know the priorities in Nyandarua County. Mimi mkulima Nyandarua County, I'm the one who knows whether I want potatoes first, whether I want roads first.
Okay. I think it was a question. I think it was a question.
It was a question, yes. But I want to tell you this. In as much as you want to keep defending government, let us be very articulate and let us be very fast.
I want us to move forward. Just a second. Let's not make this like we are defending a government. Let's not.
But that is what exactly you are doing.
Hold on. Let's not put words on each other. What happens is this, when you run under a party called ODM or PNU she's mentioning, you are accepting to be sponsored by PNU to parliament. If you do not agree with that, I don't want us to waste all our time.
But he needs to be the constitution
so that we do not go back.
It does not feel like that.
As a governance expert and as a political scientist, one of the big mistakes that we make is to buy the idea that once you're elected through a party, you're supposed to follow what the party leader says. In Kenya, we have a big problem, and that is the political problem that we have, because the biggest problem we have in Kenya is an economic problem and a political problem. The political problem is never what we say, the antagonism between the opposition and the president. The political problem is a lack of an ideological orientation for our political parties. At times we try to liken ourselves to states like the US and UK, where once you are in a party, you are bound to follow the political ideology of the party. So a party leader's position is never the ideology of the party. And that's why you see, for example, Jeremy Corbyn in the UK has been the leader of his party, it's the Labour Party, but he's now not the Prime Minister because they changed him because maybe they felt he was not representing the ideology of the party well. So once you go as an ODM or as an UDA party member, UDA is a liberal conservatism ideology party, and ODM is a social democrat party in terms of the ideology that they registered at the political parties registrar. Yes. So once you go, you're supposed to follow that ideology, that manifesto. That is what is supposed to guide you. And so that is the political problem that we have to solve. So as we address the issues that are in this country, let's address them from where we should be, not how they are.
How will this realization or awakening of the general public towards oversight, the role of oversight, how could it possibly assist William Ruto perform better in the coming years? Because now we say, okay, fine, Parliament, we no longer have any trust in their performance. Now we're taking it up ourselves. Do you think that this could be a positive move that could actually change the trajectory for even the president's performance?
You know, I still want to anchor my sentiments on the revolution, because this is what we are in. This is a revolution we are experiencing as a nation. There is nothing much really that could come from oversight as a civilians from the president, because he seems to be very anchored on his ideologies, and the people he has around are not very helpful to him. The only thing that is going to save this nation is a culmination of paradigm shift, and hopefully in the next general election we are going to have now real statesmen, people who are politically awoke, people who subscribe to the ideology of serving the people who are willing to stand on principles and serve the constitution of the Kenyan constitution. That way, we are going now to have what we are talking about. Persons who are in the National Assembly and they understand their mandate. I pity my friend Hans when he's trying to defend the members of Parliament. When they came out during the finance bill and they said, we are going to do, and this, I quote, our master's bid. You know, the president wants this thing to go through. That is what we are going to vote for. So to come here and try and defend them really is this pointless. Themselves, they've exhibited their incompetence, and there is nothing much to do with them. The only process we are hoping we'll be able to initiate is a recall process of a few of these members of parliament. That is the much we can achieve in these coming 3 years. Again, the president has come out and debased himself by trying to hold town hall sessions. That is not his part to do. He's trying to pacify and engage us in a political campaign way too early. Right now, the problem we are having is a socio-economic issue, not a political issue. If the president had only delivered his mandate, if the president had endeavored to execute the plan, the manifesto, all this chaos we're experiencing as a nation, and I've said it before, he'll be putting off fires. All these fires he's currently putting and the ones that will be coming will not have happened. So the only thing we can do as civilians, we must continue to have a very honest conversation. We must continue to be politically woke, because politics affect everything. They affect our livelihood. The rating of our nation, honestly speaking, we do not want to go to the donor dependency that we experienced in the late 90s and the early 2000s. We have to think of industrialization. We have to think of manufacturing. And this is why I have issues with people who try to defend the fertilizer movement. It is a sustenance of the slavery ideology. The coffee, the tea, and all these other cash crops that we grow, none of them are processed. None of them are fully manufactured here. We keep exporting raw materials. For how long are we going to continue feeding other economies using our own labor and sweat? And the much that a government can do is to offer you a quote subsidized fertilizer. Why are we not moving to integrated farming? Why are we not moving? You know, there's a lot of concepts we have to discuss for us to start saying that our economy is taking a positive trajectory. But I refuse, and I totally refuse, to stamp and clap for incompetency. The National Assembly has failed. The presidency is not playing his role. The president is not playing its role, because you see the fragmentation between him and the deputy. And the president, as a person, must come out and make sure that his word means
something.
Okay, Bwana Hans, even as we look at, and thank you for bringing our attention to that, the kind of relationship the president has with his deputy. This is 2 years on. That in itself can be seen as a failure to some extent, that even just keeping his house in order. The presidency is so fragmented, and it's playing out on the dailies. That's a big story on the front page of the Daily Nation today. We should be talking about the president and his 2 years, not his problems with his deputy. That in itself is also a failure in the first 2 years.
It's unfortunate that we have such today. But to my opinion, as Hans now, is we see, I would discuss this more to be a fight in Mount Kenya, other than a fight in Kenya Kwanza. Because we have a deputy who, instead of supporting the president's agenda and going with him to deliver to Kenyans, is more about solidifying his political base. And therefore, now is attracted another fight from other people to begin solidifying the same thing in their region, to show who could be more powerful in their region. But I don't think this is more affecting the performance of the government. I think it's a side interest of their own, about solidifying their base for future political interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I could say something about the issue of the isolated deputy president. You see, one of the biggest problems we have is that leaders who seek political power accuse their antagonists or their opponents of the same things that they intend to perpetuate. We had President Ruto accusing his president, or rather the President Ruto's team when he was deputy, that he was being sidelined in the development and the progress of the nation. Right now, he is facing the same accusations. That means that, unfortunately, Kenyans actually elect the same people with the same beliefs, with the same kind of operations. Nothing really changes. I want to agree with Hans that much as maybe there are those accusations that Deputy President is actually saying that he's actually being sidelined. I actually find that to be very hypocritical on my end, because once you are elected, it is not our duty for you to tell us how much you've been sidelined. It is actually for us to see. We have seen he's actually still in the budget. There's a budget committee that he still chairs. We have seen him, he's always present in the cabinet meetings. We have seen him launch projects, join the president. So as far as we are concerned, it is not for us to address the emotional differences between the president and the deputy. So this is where I want to head. I feel that the leaders of the Mount Kenya region, where I come from, are actually getting it wrong. We have issues with coffee in our region. We have issues with major infrastructure projects. For example, we have the roads like Mau Mau. We have very many incomplete roads. We have issues to do with healthcare. We have issues to do with education. We have a lot of issues that we should be addressing. But what are our leaders, our members of parliament doing? We saw how many members of parliament. Were they 50?
48.
Their focus is on appointing kingpins. And this just shows just how shallow-minded
do you think
our leaders are.
Do you think that also contributes to the performance of this administration? The first 2 years, the president has to deal with all this, including Mount Kenya politics.
I don't think
2 years after the election.
I don't think they affect how the president is running the country, because the president's way of running the country, we have already agreed as a whole that President Ruto has the support of Parliament. He has the major support of the National Assembly and the Senate. Whatever policies he wants to run his government, he's getting them done. So what I can say is that for President Ruto's government to deviate the focus of Kenyans, the focus of the Gen Zs, from public audit, like we have seen on the Adani deal, on projects that are not being delivered, on the kind of overtaxation that is happening, the issue of the public debt that we're also addressing. For them to divert us from that, they have to keep us busy addressing other issues. In the past, political issues of ethnicity, tribal kingpins worked. Right now, the people are actually not buying that story. So once you see that a few leaders came and endorsed a certain person as their kingpin, and then there is a team that supports the deputy president, I believe that these are the machinations of the state to try and keep Kenyans busy and actually create a mythical division. Kenyans are so united, Mount Kenyans are so united. There is no division except that created by the political elite.
And what about the media? Because now, 2 years after he took oath of office, today should definitely be more about the scorecard. Yes, the front of the Daily Nation, we are seeing the image of Gachagua there. It's also on the front page of the Star. They're talking about 69 Central MPs ditch Gachagua for Professor Kindiki. And many Kenyans wonder, how important is that debate to us? Do you agree with Kijana Steve that probably we're just being, our attention is being diverted to other issues that should not really bother us?
First of all, I am always very skeptical when I have to discuss about the president and the deputy, because for one, those are people who are getting salary each and every month. Their differences have not stopped either from receiving salaries or allowances. What their differences have stopped is maybe other behind the scenes deals that they could have done together if they were still friends as they were when they came in. And as a member of PNU, and we are still in opposition, I have to say this very clearly.
Yeah, you have to insist that you're still in opposition.
Yeah, you know, people think everybody has gone to government because ODM went to government and Azimio is purported to have gone to government. But no, PNU is still in opposition. First of all, the thing is, we said it clearly here that the mistake that the deputy president and every other Mount Kenya politician did in 2022 is going to a neighbor's house without a political party. You went into an agreement without a political party with members behind you, with maybe elected members behind you. So right now, the game that has been played is still the same that we saw with Ndindi Nyoro. It's only some few months ago that we saw another cocoon of leaders go to Murang'a to say that Ndindi Nyoro is the kingpin. Now again, it has shifted from Ndindi Nyoro. We've gone to Kindiki and we've seen 48 members. I've only been asking myself one question as a Kenyan. Have these members of parliament done a presser to ask about the missing kids in the Ndarasha scandal, in the fire tragedy? They have not. Have they done a presser about university strikes? They have not. Have they done any presser to raise the very fundamental concerns that Kenyans are raising? No. But they will do pressers, spend a lot of money. I can tell you, you know very well clearly that such a presser comes with a lot of financial costs. For them to move all the way from Nairobi, for them to go somewhere in between Laikipia and Nyandarua. And I think we have a problem. I think the president really understands Nyandarua, Laikipia, that he knows that is where nobody will ask such people from coming together and discussing such kind of political greed debates at this time when we are having parents who are mourning. At this point, I would have expected them to be telling us we are going page by page through the Andani deal, but that is not what is happening. So the problem between the president and the deputy president, of course, is a problem that is going to affect the development of this nation, because 2 years into power, there are already people taking sides, president, deputy president. 2 years down the line, a new wife has been brought into this marriage. So, of course, the deputy president has to feel he's aggrieved. But again, it narrows down to the question of, is this how we are going to run the government for the next 3 years? You can imagine now, already there is a rumor going around that we might look at an impeachment of the deputy president very soon, because we know all in Kenya, whatever you hear being discussed, there is a truth in it. There was a time that I came here, Fred, and you asked me, Gen Zs were talking about striking at JKIA because they felt the airport was being sold. But the government was there telling us there is no such a thing. Look at it now, 1-2 months down the line. There is a deal that is going on, but we've not completed it. Yet they are telling us that they are at stage 14 of that deal. So my problem with this regime is that they have prioritized themselves, they have prioritized politics, they have prioritized making sure that they fill their pockets, they fill their political emptiness. And again, it all comes back to the issue of Baba, because at this point we have to all agree that, honestly, at the end of the day, if Baba had not gone into government, we would not be looking at a whole Mount Kenya region feeling like something is going amiss. And Fred, kindly, if you would allow me, I would really want to ask a question. I've seen the president saying that he's going to incorporate 200,000 youths into cleaning the river. And it begs the question, when they were removing Kazim Taani, they said that these projects were not they did not have sustainability of the financial expenses that the country was going into. So we are looking at a regime that came and did away with projects that Uhuru had come with. And now, when they realize things are not working, they are going back. So it's a government of trial and error. And it's very unfortunate because when we do trial and error with some of these projects, the development are still going to continue being not going on. What are we talking about of loans? They came in with the policy of we will not be taking loans, but what have they done? They have done more borrowing and more borrowing. And we don't have a problem with people taking loans as long as we can see what the loans are doing.
As we come to the end of this conversation, of course, even the president needs a strong party behind him going forward. But we can see the fragmentation even inside his party that he's been seeking to build and to make it a huge monolithic party based on the principles of probably even the Communist Party of China. Now we're seeing fragmentation from inside his own party. That definitely will affect the performance of the president over the next 3 years, even the kind of wrangling he has with his deputy.
Definitely it is affecting, because the moment you don't have harmony, you know, in the house, then execution of any mandate you may have or any business agenda you have as a government becomes a challenge to realize. But my opinion specifically about I call it a domestic affair between the president and his deputy, is that the deputy president is a spent tidal wave. He has no political base. He has no political party. He has no developmental agenda for the country. Therefore, not very many people who are politically awoke are aligned to him. On the other side, you have a president who is trying to angle how can I best move into re-election in 2027. He has realized
more focused about re-election.
Yeah, and he has realized that the deputy president is not going to be his running mate. We have a certainty that no one is going to have him as a deputy president. He will not be on the ballot as a president. So he's also trying to agitate how can I best see this my first term to the end. But the greater question I would ask, if he's a truthful man, if he's a statesman as he claims to be, why can't he not just come out and resign? If it's that bad, you know, he doesn't have to stand the humiliation. If he's there to serve the Kenyans, and the person who, remember, he's a presidential appointee. We did not vote for him to be a deputy president.
He was on the ticket.
He was on the ticket, but who appointed him to be a running mate? It was the president. If they've had a fallout for whatever reason, that's for them to resolve. Because so I'm not going to hold brief for either of them. If it's bad, let either of them resign. Even the president should or can resign.
Do you think, for example, if he had a different person for deputy president, his performance would have been any different?
I don't think so, because it's about a leadership approach. We all have different leadership skills. We all have different administrative approaches. And the one that the president has assumed is just short of a dictatorship. That's why you see even these members of parliament, they are always doing his bid. Come here, go there, go say. And finally, I want to just digress a little bit and talk about the fire incident. Because this is not something that should be left to rest. Perception hacking is real. You've seen we've been now focused on the political ideas and the political conversation, and we seem to be abandoning the socio-economic conversation, which we need to keep discussing. Now, the fire incident that happened, it's very unfortunate, and my sincere condolences to all those who have lost their loved ones. But we have to have critical questions answered. One, what is the fire and safety policy of that school? The county that the school is in, which is the Nyeri County, it has a fire department. Was there a call? Was there a response? Number three, the CS education. And this is why we have to have people assuming institutional responsibility. If he does not come out and issue a statement, because KPLC already came out and distanced themselves from the cause of the fire. If the CS education is not coming out to give us a statement, either within the day or in the next few days, he should be preparing his resignation statement. Because we cannot continue to have reckless people holding office where they just keep distancing themselves and say ours is about policy and that is about implementation.
Oh yes.
This matter squarely lies on the CS, education, county government and the school management.
And you realize that that story has moved. It's no longer on any of the front pages of our dailies today. Instead, it's Gachagua.
Yeah.
Gachagua is and his isolation. And unfortunately, we're out of time. So allow me to end this one here.
Maybe I could conclude.
30 seconds only.
30 seconds. I want to say that, first of all, because this is the county I come from, I want to pass my condolences to the families that lost children in the Endarasha hillside fire accident. It is a sad thing, and it is our hope that the investigations that are ongoing will get to the bottom of this. My final advice to the president, having discussed how much bad the situation is that for us to move this country forward and for us to encourage investors to come and invest and create jobs, we need a policy consistency. Let us have a consistency in how we are taxing Kenyans. Let us have a consistency in how we are bringing infrastructure and development projects, and that way we can change this Kenya. And I want to encourage young people, let us continue holding this government to account. There is a hope that in the next government, we could probably find a chance to mobilize, come together, and form a government that will take care of our needs.
Asante sana kijana Stephen Derry, governance expert, and analysts, political analysts Njeri Kahiga, Josephat Kamanya, and Hans Ropp. Asanteni sana. As we continue to look at the 2 years of Ruto, today being the 13th of September 2024, it's exactly 2 years. I think short of a few hours, because the president took his oath of office at exactly 1:45 p.m. on the 13th of September 2022. So that's a big conversation today. It is a feel-good Friday right here on Morning Cafe, so do stand by for a lot of music, including some rumba after this break. My name is Freddie Ndemuli. Have a lovely day.